Have you ever noticed that some people manage to draw something out of you without touching, without asking, without speaking? It's always the same. You're in a normal environment. Everything seems normal, and then someone's presence changes the density of the air. Your chest tightens by 0.5 millimeter. Your mind slows down for a moment. A part of you contracts, and you can't explain why, but you feel it. You feel as if you're being drained, sucked dry, analyzed, deciphered, before you even realize something has begun. And the most unsettling thing is that you try to ignore it, try to act as if nothing is happening, but a silent shadow inside you whispers, something's wrong here. And this feeling doesn't appear by chance. It's a warning, a code, a psychological signal that you were never trained to recognize, but that has always been there, trying to protect you. The truth is, nobody taught you what's really happening in this instant. Nobody told you what's being stolen from you. Nobody explained why your body reacts before your consciousness. And most importantly, nobody told you that this isn't your weakness. It's their strategy. A strategy you'll only understand when you see the first piece of this hidden game, which I'm not going to reveal now. Before that, think about this. How many times have you left a conversation feeling lighter? And how many times have you left feeling smaller? There are people who recharge your mind, and there are people who drain your soul. And if you don't understand why this happens, you'll continue to believe that the problem is you. It's not. The problem is the invisible structure of their behavior, a type of psychological energy that doesn't appear on their face, but in its effect. And perhaps you've already experienced this with someone very close to you, perhaps with someone you would never suspect, perhaps with someone you love, and perhaps that's exactly why you feel this discomfort just remembering, because deep down, you already know there's a dark pattern behind these people, a pattern I'll expose in detail, but not now, because before you can understand who's draining you, you need to understand the first move in this game. The exact moment when you give more than you should, without realizing you've given more. Exhaustion begins before the conversation, before the gaze, before the physical presence. It begins in the invisible space between you and the other person, that psychological microfield where your mind tries to adjust without you realizing it. That's where certain people already have an advantage. They don't say anything, but they make you bend internally. You try to appear calm, but your body betrays a minimal, almost imperceptible tension. A subtle retraction in the shoulders, a held breath, a narrowing of attention, as if you were trying to predict something without knowing what. It is precisely at this point that you begin to lose energy. Not because someone is attacking you, but because you are defending yourself automatically. And this is where the first micro-story comes in, that of Lucas, a man who said he didn't know why he always arrived home exhausted after spending a few minutes with a co-worker. The co-worker didn't yell, didn't complain, wasn't aggressive. On the contrary, he was polite, smiled, asked about everything. But Lucas discovered something strange. Whenever the co-worker approached, he felt as if he were being examined, as if he were under a bright light, trying to adjust his responses, tone of voice, posture. He never realized that instinctively he was trying to be the version the other person wanted, even if the other person wasn't asking for anything. That's draining, not because the co-worker talked, but because he observed too much. He observed in a way that makes you perform, not exist. This is the first hidden mechanism. You feel drained because, around certain people, your mind goes into a state of hypervigilance. It's not fear. It's a silent attempt to anticipate unseen expectations. It's like walking down a dark hallway, carrying a small candle, trying not to let the flame go out. It seems subtle, but it consumes energy like fire consumes oxygen. And perhaps you think, this doesn't happen to me. But if that were true, why does your body react before your conscious awareness? Why do you feel that slight tension, that slight loss of focus, that sensation of walking on thin ground? And here's the detail no one told. You, a detail that opens the first major loop in this story. People who drain you don't do it with words. They do it with their presence, with micro-expressions, with carefully chosen silences, with that look that holds you for a second longer than it should. And that second, that single second, is enough to steal part of your stability. But that's nothing compared to the second sign, the one that makes you doubt yourself without realizing that the doubt was never yours. Do you want to know what that sign is? The second sign happens silently within your mind, like a small crack that begins discreetly and expands over time. Spontaneous self-questioning. Have you noticed? Around certain people, you start questioning yourself for no reason. Did I say too much? Did I seem strange? Did I misinterpret? These questions don't arise because you made a mistake. They arise because your mind has been induced to doubt itself, a doubt that wasn't born within you, but was planted. This is the most insidious psychological mechanism of emotional drainers. They don't criticize you, they don't confront you, they don't correct you. They simply leave spaces, small, strategic voids, a pause after you speak, a look that analyzes but doesn't react, a micro smile that doesn't fit the situation. These are gestures so minimal that your conscious mind ignores them, but your unconscious mind picks them up like a slowly buried blade. You start thinking more about what they think of you than about what you really feel. And this internal displacement costs mental energy like few other things in life. Here begins the second micro-story. Helena, a woman who always felt inferior to her own sister. Her sister was charismatic, polite, and seemingly loving. But every time Helena spoke about something personal, her sister would smile slightly and say, "I understand." That was all. There was no criticism, no debate, no provocation, but there was something in that smile, something that made Helena mentally replay every sentence she had said. One night, she realized she was spending hours trying to guess what her sister really meant. Only then did she understand. It wasn't the content. It was the ambiguity. Her sister planted doubts without saying anything, a manipulation so refined it didn't even seem like manipulation, but it drained Helena as if it were extracting energy through invisible tubes. And here's the psychological reason behind it. Internal doubts drain more energy than real conflicts. Conflicts are direct. Doubts are circular. You don't resolve them. You go around in circles, and each turn steals a piece of your strength. But there is an even deeper, darker, more dangerous sign, the third sign, one that transforms someone's mere presence into a kind of magnetic field that pulls your attention away from you and throws it into them. It's the kind of person who, without realizing it, makes you forget yourself. And this is the most destructive kind because it doesn't steal energy, it steals identity. Do you want to know how to recognize this third sign before it breaks you? The third sign is the most dangerous because it doesn't start in the body. It starts in your attention. Have you ever noticed that near certain people, your mind is drawn to them as if a magnet were stuck in the center of your chest? You cease to exist for a few seconds. You stop feeling what you feel. You stop perceiving your own presence. It's as if the person hijacks the focus of your consciousness and consequently drains your identity in that instant. These people don't do it on purpose, or they do. It depends on the type, but the effect is always the same. You start to adjust. Your posture changes, your tone changes, your rhythm changes. You become an edited version of yourself, created not by your will, but by the invisible force of directed attention. And the cruelest thing is that it doesn't seem aggressive, it seems natural, it seems normal, but that's exactly where the poison lies. Imagine a silent room. There is no bright light, no noise, no threat, but there is someone sitting in front of you with a fixed, deep gaze that doesn't invade, but absorbs, and you feel it like a suction. It is at this moment that the third sign appears. You lose the ability to remain within your own axis. You slip into the other person's psychological space. This displacement is almost imperceptible, but it costs energy, as if you were holding a door against a wind that no one else feels. To illustrate the third micro-story, Raphael had a friend who was too frank. Not rude, not blunt, just someone who always seemed to be analyzing everything. When they talked, Raphael had the impression that he was always explaining himself, always defending himself, always justifying what hadn't even been questioned. There were no attacks, but there was a dense atmosphere, a feeling that his friend captured his complete attention. One day, Raphael noticed something, simple but devastating. When he was with this friend, he didn't think about himself. He thought about him, about his opinion, about his judgment, about his reaction. And he realized that, minutes after each meeting, a heavy, almost physical exhaustion would arise, because during that time, Raphael had ceased to be Raphael. That's why you feel tired around some people. It's not because of what they say, it's because of what they demand without asking: your attention, your inner presence, your ability to remain whole. And here comes the darkest part. When someone captures your attention, they also capture your emotional balance. And when they take your balance, they take your energy. But that's still nothing compared to the fourth sign, the one that makes you absorb the other person's emotional state, even when you don't want to. The sign that transforms their energy into yours and crushes you from the inside without you even realizing it. Do you want to know what that fourth sign is? The most disguised of all. The fourth sign is invisible, sneaky, almost impossible to identify until it's too late. You start feeling emotions that aren't your own, not because someone told you something heavy, not because there was a conflict, but because the other person's emotional state seeps into you like smoke seeping through cracks you didn't even know existed. That's how certain people drain you. They not only suck your energy, they replace it with their own. You've experienced this. Before, the person approaches, says nothing, but your mood changes. You were fine, calm, neutral, and now you're tense, irritated, restless, sad, anxious, without any real event to justify it. This is not a coincidence. This is silent emotional contagion. It's their emotional field invading yours before you realize there's a boundary. This is the cruelest type of draining because it acts like a liquid shadow. It takes the shape of your insides until you think it's always been that way. But it hasn't. You've simply absorbed what you shouldn't have carried. And here lies a psychological detail that almost no one notices. Emotionally chaotic people often have a strange magnetism. Not an attractive magnetism, but a pulling magnetism. They don't pull you close, they pull you in. And when you cross that invisible line, your mental energy bends under their emotional weight. And there's a specific sign that gives it away: a sudden change in breathing. You breathe more shallowly, your chest tightens, your jaw clenches. You try to hide it, try to appear normal, but your body knows it's absorbing something that isn't its own. And the reason is simple, but devastating. Some people don't regulate their own emotions. They unleash them, they leak out, they overflow. And those nearby absorb the excess. Those who are more sensitive absorb it faster. Those who are empathetic absorb it more deeply. And those with a good heart absorb it until they are lost. But there's an even more dangerous type, the one that makes you believe the problem is you, that makes you feel guilty for something you didn't do, that makes you carry their emotional weight as if it were your responsibility. That's the fifth sign, the darkest, most destructive, most Machiavellianly crafted. And when you notice this sign, you understand that you're not dealing with someone who drains you by accident, but someone who drains you for their own gain. Do you want to know what that fifth sign is? What separates a simple emotional vampire from a sophisticated psychological manipulator? The fifth sign is the boundary where emotional drain ceases to be an accident and reveals itself as a strategy. You begin to feel guilty simply for existing, guilty for having limits, guilty for saying no, guilty for not adapting quickly enough to the other person's moods, expectations, and needs. And the most insidious part, this guilt doesn't stem from direct words, but from calculated insinuations, ambiguous gestures, micro-expressions calibrated to make you always feel a little insufficient. This is the most Machiavellian psychological mechanism of all, silent reversal of responsibility. The person who drains you never takes responsibility for their own chaos. They just leave emotional crumbs in your path for you to pick up, thinking you should have done more. And each crumb you pick up consumes another part of your energy. This is how chronic burnout arises. Not just tiredness, moral burnout. And here comes the fourth micro-story, and perhaps the most devastating. Sophia was dating someone who never said he was disappointed in her. He never complained. He never demanded anything. But whenever Sophia talked about her own limitations, her partner would look down, take a deep breath and say, "It's okay, I understand." It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't an attack. It was worse. It was silent disappointment, a disappointment that made Sophia feel guilty even when her choices were reasonable. She started apologizing for everything, even for not immediately responding to messages that arrived while she was sleeping. And the more apologies she gave, the more drained she felt. Until one day she realized it wasn't her who was failing. It was him who was shaping the emotional environment so that she would carry the weight that was his. This is the fifth sign, when guilt ceases to be an emotion and becomes a tool. And it is precisely here that the darkest turn of the script emerges. Because when you understand this signal, you realize that you are not just tired, you are being conditioned, induced, programmed to serve the emotional state of the other. But before you learn how to defend yourself, you need to see the whole trap. There's a psychological structure behind the drain that functions like a capture net, a Machiavellian net that traps you not through emotions, but through your own sense of obligation. This is the point at which you lose autonomy. But it's also the point where we begin to break down that structure. Because now I'm going to show you the hidden mechanism that allows these people to have so much power over you, and how you can dismantle that power silently, strategically, and precisely, using the same logic they use against you. Now that you've recognized the signs, you need to understand the hidden engine that powers it all. Involuntary psychological concession. This is the exact moment when you unconsciously give something from your inner world, attention, validation, rhythm, autonomy, boundaries, and the other person takes it as an entry point. This is when the draining ceases to be a symptom and becomes a system. And that is precisely what Machiavelli would understand as territory ceded without battle, the most dangerous kind, because there is no bloodshed, no confrontation, no resistance. There is only a gesture, you remaining silent to maintain peace. A small adaptation made to avoid discomfort, a micro-displacement of your center. And that is how the other begins to manage your energy as if they owned it. But that's where the first pillar of the Machiavellian defense comes in. Stop the invasion before it reaches your psychological core. And that's only possible when you learn to see with surgical precision the real structure of the game. I'm going to show you the anatomy of this dynamic and, more importantly, how to break it. The first component is the impact of another person's emotional state on your nervous system. You're not tired because the person talks a lot. You're tired because your body goes into a state of vigilance when they approach. You read micro-expressions, hesitations, tones of voice, everything to anticipate their next move. This energy expenditure exists because you instinctively try to control the environment to avoid tension. The defense: cut out compulsive emotional reading. This is achieved by maintaining a less responsive gaze, a deliberately relaxed body, and internal focus on your breathing. The secret is not to react less, but to perceive less. The less stimulation your brain receives, the less energy you waste. The second component: capturing your attention. They drain you because they make you exist in the other person's field. When you think too much about what the other person thinks, feels, or expects, you abandon your own center. Machiavelli would say that here you lose mental territory. The defense: internal anchoring. Before engaging with someone who bores, you silently ask yourself, what do I want to feel in this interaction? The brain follows the dominant intention. If you don't define one, you absorb theirs. The third component: the silent emotional contagion. Their anxiety becomes yours. Their frustration becomes yours. Their instability becomes yours, not because you are fragile, but because your brain is biologically trained to mirror the emotions of those around you. The defense: break the mirroring with minimal gestures. Place your feet firmly on the ground, align your posture, breathe more slowly. When you slow down your body, the brain automatically rejects contagion. The emotional field stabilizes and you become impervious. But the most Machiavellian part is yet to come. The silent reversal of blame, where you end up believing you have to carry a burden that isn't yours. That's the point where many succumb, because thinking the problem is you consumes more energy than any direct attack. The defense: to mentally name the other person's behavior, not allowed. Just acknowledge it within yourself. This isn't mine. Machiavelli would call this internal shielding. When you name it, you don't absorb it. But there is one final defense, the most powerful one, that transforms you into someone psychologically impenetrable. It not only prevents them from draining your energy, it creates such a solid aura that these people stop trying. And it is this technique that I'm going to reveal to you now. The most powerful technique, the one that transforms you into someone psychologically impenetrable, doesn't involve confronting, explaining, justifying, or running away. It involves something far more elegant and disturbing for those trying to drain you: absolute control over one's own internal rhythm. It seems simple, but it's devastating, because all manipulation, all draining, all theft of energy depends on one thing: altering your mental rhythm so that you adapt to theirs. When you keep to your own pace, you become unreachable. I'll show you how this works in such a subtle way that it seems almost supernatural. There are 3 pillars within this technique. 1. Emotional rhythm. Don't speed up together, don't slow down together. People who drain you work by creating emotional micro-vibrations: anxiety, urgency, expectation, tension. If you engage with them, you lose strength. If you lower your frequency to try not to bother them, you lose inner territory. The Machiavellian secret is to maintain a cold neutrality. Your gestures remain slow, your breathing remains deep, your tone of voice remains steady. You become a psychological wall. And when someone tries to drain someone like that, they run headlong into a solid emotional field. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. 2. Cognitive rhythm. Taking an extra second to respond. This is an old trick used by high-level leaders, strategists, negotiators, and manipulators. Calculated pauses. You don't respond at the speed the other person expects. Never. You break their cycle of anticipation, and when that happens, you regain control of the interaction, because whoever sets the pace holds the power. Machiavelli would understand this immediately. Whoever controls time controls the field. 3. Energy rhythm. Detaching from the other person's reaction. The greatest loss of energy doesn't come from the behavior of the person draining you. It comes from your worry about how they will react. The antidote? A simple and brutal principle. The other person's reaction is not your responsibility. Internally, you operate like a wall, firm, unwavering, indifferent to small emotional changes. This detachment creates a sense of aura, something people feel even without you saying anything. It's when you realize something has changed, not in them, but in you. And the most interesting thing is that when you master this, people who drained you start to feel uncomfortable around you. They lose access, they lose influence, they lose space. But something is still missing, something bolder. It's not enough to be impenetrable. You need to learn how to turn the tables. Not just defend yourself, but make those people back down, not out of fear, not out of force, but out of strategy. And this is where the final move comes in, the silent counterattack. It doesn't involve humiliating anyone, exposing them, or assaulting them. It involves using the person's own psychological structure to make them give up trying to drain you. Want to learn this? Counterattack? the most powerful technique, the one that transforms you into someone psychologically impenetrable, doesn't involve confronting, explaining, justifying, or running away. It involves something far more elegant and disturbing for those trying to drain you. Absolute control over one's own internal rhythm. It seems simple, but it's devastating, because all manipulation, all draining, all theft of energy depends on one thing: altering your mental rhythm so that you adapt to theirs. When you keep to your own pace, you become unreachable. I'll show you how this works in such a subtle way that it seems almost supernatural. There are 3 pillars within this technique. 1. Emotional rhythm. Don't speed up together. Don't slow down together. People who drain you work by creating emotional micro-vibrations: anxiety, urgency, expectation, tension. If you engage with them, you lose strength. If you lower your frequency to try not to bother them, you lose inner territory. Machiavellian's secret is to maintain a cold neutrality. Your gestures remain slow, your breathing remains deep, your tone of voice remains steady. You become a psychological wall. And when someone tries to drain someone like that, they run headlong into a solid emotional field. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. 2. Cognitive rhythm. Taking an extra second to respond. This is an old trick used by high-level leaders, strategists, negotiators, and manipulators. Calculated pauses. You don't respond at the speed the other person expects. Never. You break their cycle of anticipation, and when that happens, you regain control of the interaction, because whoever sets the pace holds the power. Machiavelli would understand this immediately. Whoever controls time controls the field. 3. Energy rhythm. Detaching from the other person's reaction. The greatest loss of energy doesn't come from the behavior of the person draining you. It comes from your worry about how they will react. The antidote? A simple and brutal principle. The other person's reaction is not your responsibility. Internally, you operate like a wall, firm, unwavering, indifferent to small emotional changes. This detachment creates a sense of aura, something people feel even without you saying anything. It's when you realize something has changed, not in them, but in you. And the most interesting thing is that when you master this, people who drained you start to feel uncomfortable around you. They lose access, they lose influence, they lose space, but something is still missing, something bolder. It's not enough to be impenetrable. You need to learn how to turn the tables, not just defend yourself, but make those people back down, not out of fear, not out of force, but out of strategy. And this is where the final move comes in, the silent counterattack. It doesn't involve humiliating anyone, exposing them, or assaulting them. It involves using the person's own psychological structure to make them give up trying to drain you. Want to learn this counterattack? An unbreakable aura is not a mask. It's not an artificial posture. It's not arrogance, intimidation, or emotional detachment. It arises when you reclaim all the inner parts you had surrendered: attention, rhythm, center, boundaries, silence, presence, and put them back in the exact place they should never have left. It's a psychological state that doesn't depend on strength, but on consistency. It's not a shield you hold. It's a field you become. It begins when you understand deeply that no one has authority over your energy without your unconscious permission. An unbreakable aura is born when that permission is withdrawn, when you stop adjusting automatically, when you stop carrying emotions that aren't yours, when you stop trying to be agreeable to maintain harmony, when you break free from the role they've placed on you and return to your own center of gravity. An unbreakable aura is, above all, a silent collapse of external expectations. It arises from 4 internal movements. 1. You stop reacting. The manipulator loses the advantage. The drain loses its source. Chaos loses its impact. His neutrality becomes a wall. His calmness becomes a weapon. His presence becomes an impossible code to decipher. 2. You no longer offer free emotional access. It doesn't matter who it is: friend, relative, colleague, partner. Your internal state is no longer for sale. You feel what you want to feel, not what others force you to feel. You become the curator of your own energy. 3. You observe more than you participate. And that changes everything, because whoever observes controls the field. Those who observe see patterns before they form. Those who observe see intentions before they become action. You stop being played, and he becomes a player. 4. You assume you don't need to please others to be safe. This is the ultimate liberation. When you understand that you have no psychological obligation to anyone, everything changes. Your body relaxes, your mind expands, your emotional field hardens like steel. And then something curious happens. The people who used to drain you begin to feel something they've never felt around you before. Discomfort. Not because you've changed externally, but because now there is a border, something they can't get through, something they can't change, something they are unable to manipulate, that something is your whole self. And when that aura settles in, you realize you're not just protected. You are free. Free from guilt that wasn't his. Free yourself from energy that didn't belong to you. Free yourself from tension that didn't concern you. Free from expectations that were never your responsibility. Free yourself from people who only prospered when they threw you off balance. But here comes the cliffhanger, because there is an even deeper layer, a layer I haven't talked about until now. A layer over. Why did you attract that type of person? Regarding what exists within you that served as an entry point, about the invisible pattern that explains why certain people approached you and why you let them get close. This answer is not part of this video, but it exists. And when you hear, you won't be able to forget. Because in the next video, I'm going to show you the truth that nobody wants to face. It's not just about why they drain you, it's about why you allowed it.